the Tracks. I'm Brandon Turbeville, your host. Tonight is February 8th, 2016, and we're going to be talking with a special guest tonight. But before we do, I want to remind you that you can catch Truth on the Tracks here every Monday night and Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on ucy.tv. Of course, the new broadcast is always Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can follow my work at activistpost.com and naturalblaze.com, as well as my own website, brandonturbeville.com, which is the website where I repost all of my articles, all of the YouTube videos, all of the archive versions of this show, and, of course, the books are available there as well. And you can find those, again, at brandonturbeville.com. Now, tonight I have a very special guest with me. Mr. David Icke is joining us for the entire show to talk about a number of different issues. And for those of you who don't know, David was a professional footballer, a BBC presenter, and had a spiritual awakening in the early 90s that was, and still is continuing to this day. And in the meantime, after taking so much ridicule for many things that he said that have now come to pass, he is still writing and embarking on a world tour this year all across the United States and Europe and some other locations as well. He's written about 21 books, and his newest book, Phantom Self and How to Find the Real One, is now available. It should be in stores, I believe, in February and March, but you can find it at davidicke.com and purchase it there right now if you're interested, and that's his website, davidicke.com. And again, I just wanted to welcome David to the show. David, thanks for coming on today.
It's a pleasure, Brandon.
So before we really get into anything in depth, I want to ask you to tell us a little bit about the events that you've got going and the new book.
Well, I just had this very strong intuition a little while ago that I had to get out and communicate this information to as many people as possible all over the world. And what's happened is it's all fallen into place. It's like throwing something in the air and it comes down in the place it should, in the speed that it's been put together. And I'm going to be speaking in the United States, in New York, and Los Angeles and San Francisco in September. In July, I'm in Australia, in Perth, Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, and then Auckland, New Zealand, and then all over Europe between October and Christmas. And then I'm continuing it into 2017. It's open-ended. As long as people want to hear it, I'm going to keep going because I do feel. In fact, I was saying this many, many years ago, that 2016, 2017, 2018 are very, very pivotal years in the direction that this human society takes from here. And it's basically a question of how many can awaken to their true self and thus see through the lies and the smoke screens and the engineered illusions that we call the real world, and how many continue to be locked in to a mind program, a perception program, a behavior program, which has been imposed upon them since they entered this reality. And the reason that the new book is called Phantom Self is because the point I'm making, and from my own observations over many years, most people live their phantom self reality. By that I mean they self-identify with their name, their race, their life story, their family history, basically their human experience. And that's the key word. It's their human experience. It's not who they are. We are simply in our pure state. We are simply awareness, the state of being aware. The question is, how much of infinite awareness, what some people call God, are we accessing? Are we so focused and manipulated to be so focused on five sense reality that that's all of our awareness that we can perceive and conceive? Or are we expanding our awareness to realize that what we call the five sense real world is merely a tiny, tiny band of frequency, which what I call the biological computer, the body, can decode? Thus, if we get imprisoned in body consciousness, if you like, in five sense consciousness, then our infinite awareness and our sense of that and our connection to it in terms of influence of our perception gets shut out, because we are so focused through the body on this tiny band of frequency, which is all the body can decode, called visible light. And so when people have what they call out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences, they invariably talk with incredible common themes of how they suddenly, when they left the body, what they've done is they've left that focus of attention. Suddenly they are experiencing multiple realities in the same moment at the same time, because time's an illusion of this illusory reality, and they could have clarity and over a great swathe of understanding that they didn't even begin to lock into when they were in the body. They understand that everything is connected to everything else, because we are that which we give names to. We are an expression, a point of attention within infinite awareness. Thus, if we so self-identify with that point of attention, we become like a droplet of water detached from the ocean. We become limited in our sense of everything. I can't, it's not possible, I'm just little me. But you put the droplet back in the ocean, and where does the droplet end and the ocean start? They're all one. And so when we leave the body, out-of-body and near-death experiences have this awareness that everything is connected. They become, if not the ocean in its entirety, they become aware of a much greater area of the ocean, and thus can tap into what that ocean can give them in terms of knowledge, understanding, inspiration, intuitive knowing. And I've been investigating and researching this global conspiracy for coming up now in March, 26 years. And the more that you understand it, the simpler it gets. We can talk about manipulated 9/11s and manipulated banking crashes, manipulated political changes in society, transformations of society, manipulated wars. We can research that, and we can talk about all that, and we should, because people have to know that's going on. You can't change something you don't understand exists and needs to change. But if you break it down, the entire conspiracy is to detach five sense awareness, body awareness, from infinite self. And that's why the book is called Phantom Self and How to Find the Real One, because without phantom self, there is no conspiracy. This is why the system has to manufacture, has to mold, has to create phantom self, because without it, there is no conspiracy. You cannot manipulate infinite awareness in awareness of itself. You can only manipulate en masse that which has lost touch with its true self and believes in the fake self, the phantom self. And so one of the things I do in the book, Brandon, is I go through this process which creates phantom self. And it's so blatant when you see it. First of all, you come into the world, and the first influences are your parents. And those influences, unless you've got open-minded parents, but overwhelmingly those influences will be the system's influences, because they have been through the same process I'm about to describe very quickly. And so they are passing on their programming to you, not out of malevolence, overwhelmingly, but because they think that's the right thing to do, because they think what they've downloaded, and that's what it is, it's a download, a reality download, that is how things are. And now, and at least when I was a kid in the 50s, you might have got to 5 years old before you hit the education system. Now it's kind of 3 or 4. And there's some guy in Britain in the education system of government who wants kids at school at 2. I mean, I'm not a violent man, but I could have thoughts on the basis of that absolute nonsense, because what they're doing is they are trying to get children awareness yet unprogrammed in certainly in its entirety anyway. They're trying to get them in the system so that programming starts as early as possible, and any other influences are drowned out. So at the age of 3 or 4, in this process of programming, you have just entered this world. I mean, 3 or 4 years, and now you're sitting in a classroom, an authority figure is in front of you, and they're telling you when you have to be there, when you can leave, when you can eat, when you can go to the toilet, etc., etc. They're telling you what's right, what's wrong, what's possible, what's impossible, what's credible, what's not credible, how things are, how things are not. And this then goes on through the entire school period. And then you go into college and university, where it all happens on a higher level. Same thing, same process. And but at that level, that higher education level, there's another little twist now, and that's that you pay for your own programming to the extent that you are in debt for much of the rest of your life, brackets, control. And then you reach this point where you go out into the world, you go out into the adult world. And by this time, most people, thankfully not all, have downloaded the system's version of virtually everything. And they go off to be in a specialization, to be a politician, to be a doctor, to be a scientist, to be a CEO, to be a lawyer, a judge, whatever. And what they've taken with them, government administrators, another one, they've taken with them that base reality programming, which is now being downloaded. And of course, if they start to question that download, question that what is now normal real world, then there's tremendous peer pressure they get hit with from all the people around them who've been through that process and bought it and downloaded it and accepted it as reality. And you go into science, you start questioning the song sheet science, you're suddenly, not very popular, and your funding's gone. So this is the base programming. And of course, when you go out into the adult world, everything changes. When you were a kid, the alarm used to go off in the morning when you didn't really want to get up and you were tired and you wanted to stay in bed longer because that's what you wanted to do with a free choice. But you couldn't, because you had to get up and get your clothes on and your uniform on and get to school, because you have to go to school. It's the law. And so when you go out into the adult world, thankfully, all that ends. What happens then is the alarm goes off and you have to get up when you don't want to get up, and you have to get your clothes on, and you have to often go to a job that you intensely dislike. And instead of the teacher telling you when you have to be there and when you can leave and when you can eat and all that other stuff, you've got something called a boss or a manager or a line manager or whatever it is. In other words, Brandon, what I'm saying is the program goes on through life and it's the same, but it just appears different because they give it different names. Like now you're at school, now you're at work, now you're retired. I mean, when people so-called retire, the system's still dictating to them overwhelmingly their sense of reality. And if you've not managed to get a personal pension or something, then of any size, then of course vast numbers of people play out the last years of their life just existing and trying to survive another week financially alone, and that's what they call a human life. And by the time you're leaving school and getting into that adult world and onwards, phantom self is already there pretty much. You are self-identifying with your name, your background, your income bracket later in life, or your parents' income bracket, your race, your religion, your politics. These are all the defining labels, because that's what phantom self is basically created from. It's created from labels and the perceptions that come from those labels. And once you're in that mode and self-identifying only with phantom self, then the system's got you. And it's got you not just in terms of your perceptions, it's got you in terms of your, if you like, your frequency. Because perceptions are expressions of frequency. Frequencies are expressions of perceptions. So if you are in a closed minded state with a very myopic sense of reality, then you will have correspondingly the equivalent of a myopic frequency range, a frequency band, and it will be much denser than it would be if you expanded your awareness and reflected a higher frequency as a result of that expansion. So what I'm saying here is the bottom line foundation from which everything else comes is that the system wants and must, to survive itself, disconnect incarnate body awareness from infinite awareness. And it does that in multiple ways. And one of the if you like, the next stage of that disconnection is what we call transhumanism.
Yeah, I want to get into that, David, but before we do, what you described with the phantom self is essentially a prison within a prison, right? Because you might be imprisoned within the 5 sense reality, but when this institutional, school, work, retirement type of life, you've imprisoned even more in that 5 sense reality. And you made a decision many years ago. I've heard you speak about this before, that you would follow your intuition more so than the pure mind itself. And I think a lot of people, because their intuition is competing with so many outside voices, have a problem actually recognizing when that intuition is speaking to them. Because there are different levels of intuition too, on smaller level things versus larger scale things as well. So I was wondering if you could speak to that, and anybody who might be having that problem, how would you suggest that they learn to distinguish when that intuition is speaking to them versus when it's their mind speaking to them or when it's an outside influence?
Well, a number of ways. First of all, intuition doesn't think, it knows. When you are, and look at the body language, and that tells you where it's coming from. When we have an intuitive knowing, that's what it is, a knowing. We don't say, my intuition has worked out that. My intuition has gone through a thought process and concluded that. We say, look, mate, I can't tell you why I need to be there tomorrow. I just know. And invariably, when people say, I just know, their hands go towards their chest. I just know. And, like everything, the world's an inversion, and it's inversion on purpose. the truth is inverted, which is why the whole of human society is basically based on lies and untruths. And what has been inverted to the enormous cost of human perception is that the heart society, the intuitive society, where we connect heart to heart, has been usurped by a belly head society, by interacting with reality through emotion or through what we call intellect. And when we say, look, mate, I'm thinking, where do the hands so often go? They go to the head. I'm thinking, because the mind, body mind, has to think. It has to work things out, because it is basically, compared with intuitive heart connection to infinite awareness, the brain, the head, the body mind, left to itself without connection to infinite self, is comparatively a village idiot. It's bewildered. It's in this world, and all these things are happening, and what's it about? And oh my goodness, why is this happening? I don't understand. And why does that happen? And there's all these mysteries. Who am I? Even if people actually bother to ask that. What is this world? I mean, if people have to bother to ask that. And so it's trying to work things out, and it's bewildered. And this is the level of mind, the level of consciousness, if you like, stretching the meaning of that word, that you see in the universities and in mainstream science and in mainstream medicine and in mainstream politics and mainstream media. They are in this tiny bubble of reality, trying to work it out. But you can't work it out within the bubble alone, because the bubble is designed to stop you working it out. That's why everything's inverted. That's why everything's suppressed. That's why the true nature of reality is not taught in the schools, and you don't see it on television programs and stuff like that. So you're never going to work it out. The only way you're going to work it out is to know it. And to know it is to access infinite awareness through the heart, not the physical heart, although not that there is any physical really if you get deep enough into it, but not the physical heart, although that's an expression of it, but the energetic heart, the heart vortex, the heart energetic field, which is the Institute of Heart Math in America, researches into the power of the heart, has concluded in its experiments and all the research that it does. The heart vortex, what some people call the heart chakra, it projects the most powerful electromagnetic field in the body. They've also found that when the heart field and the head field and the central nervous system are in harmony, what they call coherence, people go on to a higher level of expanded awareness. And what this systematic imprisonment, I mean, you use the word, prison, it's a very good description of it. What they've done is they have broken that coherence. We have a world where people are constantly in different low vibrational emotional states. It might be this anxiety that's always there in so many people, fear, worry, hatred, conflict. All of these things are expressions of fear in the end. And when we are coming from those low vibrational emotional states, of course, it's in frequency terms and in energetic harmony terms, it's trashing this coherence that we should be, this energetic coherence that we should be operating on in a world that was left alone. And thus people become, instead of heart people, they become head people. And the head is bombarded. You just mentioned it a few minutes ago, quite rightly. The head is bombarded. The emotions in the gut, the the emotional chakra in the belly, they are bombarded with information, most of it fake, bombarded with reasons to worry, to be anxious, to be stressful. And therefore, is it any surprise that with that cacophony of information distortion and manipulation, that people can't feel or hear their intuition anymore? But it's possible to do it. And one thing I would say, if you're trying to work it out with thought, it's not your intuition. If you're trying to work it out emotionally, it's not intuition, it's emotion. If you're saying, I just know, I just feel it, then that's your intuition talking, because your intuition through the heart is a connection, the most powerful connection, there are others, to infinite awareness beyond this visible light field of reality. And because you are accessing expanded awareness when you do that, that's why intuition knows and does not have to work it out. When I started my journey 26 years ago, and it only happened in the very, very early days, I would use my mind, my intellect, to work out what was happening and then make conclusions on that. But after a very short time and of going with my intuition, I just knew how things were. I knew it without any research. And then what would happen is 5 sense information, names, dates, places, and all this other information would come to confirm the intuitive conclusion. And that's because the true self is the knowing self. The phantom self is the thinking self. It's the challenge to go with the knowing self in a world that is wholly founded virtually on thinking self. Because what it means is, and my goodness me, I'm a massive example of this. When you go with your intuition, you're going to do things, you're going to say things, and you're going to act in ways that are completely at odds with mainstream society, the norm, which is based on thinking self and the perceptions of phantom self. So if you want to break out of the program into your true self, then you've got to accept that there are going to be challenges. And it's certainly early on. I mean, the matter of fig to me now, hasn't for a long time. But in the early days, when you start to do this and you meet resistance and you meet ridicule and you meet dismissal, it can be challenging when you're new to it. But that's the price of reconnecting with infinite self. Because the world of phantom self is not going to understand what you're talking about. It's going to say you're mad. It's going to say you're dangerous, or both. And you just have to face that. No one said it would be easy. The point is, though, when you move your self-identity, your sense of who you are, from phantom self to infinite self, so you are living your life as infinite awareness, having the experience, which you call your name, life story, and whatever people are saying about you, then you're not caught in the impact of the phantom self world like you would be if you were in phantom self world. You can see that it's just an experience, and there'll be another one along tomorrow. I mean, look at me. I was in 1990, 91, particularly 91, 92, 93, 94, I couldn't walk down any street in Britain without being laughed at by most people. And I mean most people. Going into a pub or a bar was just a waste of time. There was uproar. A comedian only had to say my name on the television and they got a laugh. They didn't need a joke. Just David Icke was enough. When you kind of go through that in phantom self mode, it can destroy you. But when you go through it in I am infinite awareness, having this experience, it's very different the way that it impacts upon you. And where I'm going with this is that now, 20 odd years later, people who laughed in my face in the street, who ridiculed my children because of me, they're reading my books. And they're stopping me in the street now wanting to talk about what I do, because the experience they've had of unfolding world events, and some in their own life, like spiritual experiences they can't explain, has changed their perception and started to weaken the impact of the program upon them. And, you know, I remember when in the very early days when I was talking to a psychic. I met a psychic in the early days when strange things were happening to me I didn't understand. And she told me I was going to go out on a world stage and reveal great secrets. This is in March 1990, and all the things that have happened you talked about at that time. And one of the things that came out was a lovely line: the spiritual road is tough, or words to that effect, and no one makes it easy. And the reason is, what we call spiritual is simply awakening to a much more expanded understanding of who you are and the nature of the reality we're experiencing. And when you do that in a world that's still fast asleep and still perceiving everything through the program, which is designed to imprison the human family, then it's going to be tough. But the question is, how tough are you going to allow it to be? Because it's not the experience that dictates our state of being, if you like. It's our response to the experience. It's how we react to the experience. For instance, you can go on to social media and post something, and you can get endless abuse, and you can let it destroy you. I mean, there are many, many cases of people, especially young people, sadly, committing suicide as a result of things that are said about them on social media by moronic, psychopathic people. Or you can shake your head and laugh, or you just don't read it. It's the same experience. The abuse is still there. But how do you respond to it? And the great news is we have the power to make that decision. And you know, I've been fortunate, really, to have gone through well, in this country, Britain, historic levels of ridicule that I have since 1991, because it was a gift. It didn't feel like it at the time, but it was. It was a gift because it cleaned me out of the concern with what other people thought of me. And thus, when I open my mouth, I say what I think. There's no mental gymnastics that says, well, how do I put this in a way that they won't think I'm crazy? I don't really care. What do I leave out so they won't think I'm crazy? I don't care. I have the lot, mate. And this is possible for anyone to do that. I've been fortunate, and it may sound strange and weird to say that, but I've been fortunate to go through that fantastic level of ridicule because it was a gift. You know, I've said in some of the books, life can give us our greatest gifts brilliantly disguised as our worst nightmare. And the nightmare can destroy us, or it can make us and allow us to become who we really are as opposed to what we are told and what is dictated that we are. And if people want to expand their awareness to their true self, their infinite self, then don't kid yourself that it just happens and suddenly you're walking down leafy lanes with butterflies landing on your shoulder. You are awakening in a fast asleep, comatose world. Thus, there are going to be challenges of people around you, family even. Oh, I'm very worried about Johnny. He seems to have gone mad and all that. Well, no, he's not gone mad, Mother. He's just gone sane. You ought to try it. And you know, when you live in a world that's basically a madhouse because of the program and because of the inversion, if the madhouse doesn't perceive you as mad, then the question immediately is, why not? When the madhouse perceives me as mad, you know, I burst into a round of applause because that's how it should see me if I'm saying anything with validity. And you know, we just got to have some backbone and some understanding that, hey, goodness, whatever happens, whatever we're experiencing in the moment, it's just an experience, and there'll be another one along tomorrow.
That kind of leads me to my next question. You mostly answered that, but just so you can add to it, if somebody decides that they want to make the same decision that you made, to start following their intuition, what would you say would be the first step for them, besides preparing to deal with all the abuse and all the ridicule, you know, that's going to come with it, and all these people around them trying to convince them to do otherwise? What would you say would be the first step in that decision?
One word: intent. Intent is an incredibly powerful energy if it is intent, true intent, and not just mouthing the words. I want to wake up to become my true self. Okay. Okay. So this is what life is going to bring towards you, so that you can do that. Okay. And at that point, oh, hold on a minute. I didn't agree to this. No, I didn't want to do it that badly. No, I want to go back where it was before. Because when you put out the intent and you mean it of what you want to do, what you want to achieve, how you want to change your reality, which you control if only we realized it, then there are certain things that have to happen for you to achieve that intent. And what tends to happen when you deliver that intent and you mean it is your life starts to fall apart. You have great challenges. You might lose your job. People go out of your life. A relationship might break up. And you go, oh my goodness me, I just wanted to be spiritual. And oh, my life's falling apart. I mean, look at mine. You know, I went from a respected television presenter, national television presenter on the BBC, to a figure of national ridicule, the like of which I can't think of anyone else has been through it in this country and many others. So, I mean, you know, I was an extreme example of it. But if you really have that intent that you want to transform your life to where you want it to go, then all those things that are acting like balls and chains on your ability to do that have got to go. And they move out and others move in. And you know, if you're in a relationship and they move with you, then you can move together. But if one doesn't, well, there's the parting of the ways. Because with that intent, you are creating your reality. You know, my view strongly is that this universe, as we call it, is actually a simulation and a quantum computer. And it's an interactive quantum computer. I call it the cosmic internet. It's an interactive cosmic internet. And the body is like, well, I call it a biological computer. It's interacting. It is posting with its thoughts, its perceptions, its intent. It's posting information onto the internet, and it's taking information from the internet. And again, we come back to frequency. If you are in a low state of frequency because you're in a low state of awareness, then that's the frequency range that you're going to interact with the cosmic internet on. And it's going to be very limited, and it's going to manifest a very limited life. But if you expand that awareness, you're going to consequently interact with the cosmic internet in a much more expanded way, and thus much more is available to you in potential, in possibility, in awareness, in intuition, in knowing. Therefore, as you follow that intent that you want to expand your awareness, then your interaction with the cosmic internet, what you post and what you download from it, changes. And that will manifest as changes in jobs, maybe, changes in relationships or no relationship, changes in location, changes in many, many different ways. And what you find, what I've found anyway, is as you go with that intent and mean it, and going with that intent means when there's a choice that is a challenge and a choice that avoids the challenge, when the challenge is necessary to achieve your intent, well, if you don't go with the challenge, you run away from it, then the ability of your intent to manifest what you want is diluted. You know, the spiritual road is tough and no one makes it easy. But as you follow it and you go with it, you start to realize that although you following your intuition as opposed to your mind, because what's going to happen, what always happens when you follow the intent, and following intent means following intuition, because that's what's speaking to you and taking you on that journey in the direction that you say you want to go with your intent. Obviously, your head, phantom self, is going to be screaming, both in fear because it's losing its power and omnipotence, and also screaming at you, telling you how ridiculous it is where your intuition's taken you, and how it's all going to end in tears. And are you crazy? You can't go walking in India. You've got a cat. You've got a house. You've got a job. You can't do that. It's always trying to pull you back. It's like a default position. You need to keep going and keep going and keep going. And what happens in the end is if you like, your intellect, your phantom self starts to see that when you go with your intuition, you might get into some challenges. You're bound to, because your intuition is going to be at odds with the norms of the world, which are non-intuitive. But in the end, it all works out. And it doesn't work out despite the challenges. It works out because of the challenges. And at that point, and I experienced this quite a while ago, at that point, what you think and what you intuitively feel become the same. So when I'm going with my intuition now, I don't have my head screaming, oh, what are the consequences? Oh, God, all the list of things why you shouldn't do it. My head goes, my intuition goes, I feel to go there. I feel to do this. And the head goes, okay, let's go. And there's the war stops. The war stops. And it means you can do things very much quicker than you can when you're having this constant conversation and argument with your phantom self. And like I say, if you put out the intent and you mean it, and then you follow where that intent takes you, and this is the point, coming at it from this expanded awareness point of view, when a big experience comes along that you don't like, you can see it in that context. Okay, this is a challenge. I don't like it, but what is it giving me? What is it? This is the line. Oops, sorry, hold on. get rid of that. Yeah. Call back later. The point is, and the line is, what is this experience telling me? Because it's all everything. You know, I have this phrase, the language of life. The language of life is always telling us things. It's always pointing things out to us. And again, I can only talk about my experience, and it's this. If it's difficult, not that it's challenging and people are having a go at you and all that, but if you go on a process of doing something and it's like the doors keep slamming and the doors won't open, then it's almost certainly the language of life saying, no, this is not for you. It may not be not for you forever, but it's not for you now. And then you go with this this flow of intuition, and suddenly doors open and everything becomes easy. See, this world tour I'm doing now, there was a time for it to happen. And that's why, in a ridiculously short time, it's all fallen into place with incredible speed. If I'd have tried to do this 2 years ago, things would have blocked it all over the place. In many and various ways, even in, you know, apparently mundane things like, that venue's not available, or you don't have the money to do this or do that. And then suddenly, whoa, it's time. And so again, there is another massive inversion that life is supposed to be difficult. It's not. It's supposed to be, beautiful. It's supposed to flow. It's supposed to all come together. But because we live in a inverted world, that's where the challenges come from. But if you can get into that expanded state of awareness, follow that intuition, although your interactions with the inverted world will produce challenges, the basic journey, the basic sequence of events that lead you to where your intent wants to go, you're in sync with that flow, then things are easy. Things fall into place through what we call synchronicity. That's actually a good word to use. Synchronicity is when intuition, intent come together and flow together. Non-synchronicity is when things don't work, and that's when the question is, why isn't this working? What is this lack of working telling me? And if you read the language of life or what it's telling you, you just change your direction and suddenly, whoa, the door's open, where the doors were all closed before. Life's so beautiful. It's such an adventure, but only when you come to it from that level of awareness that can connect with this synchronicity and intuitive flow. If you don't, if you're in phantom self, then life can go very tough indeed, and blocks can be all over the place, wherever you look.
Yeah, you mentioned something earlier on in our discussion about 2016, 2017, 2018 being some of the most pivotal years for us. And I read your book, Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, which contained a lot of information both on the 5 sense level and beyond that. And a lot of that information people would consider to be dark, but the book itself was somewhat positive at the end, that you're overall positive about where we're going in terms of society and humanity in general. Can you speak to the fact, what do you think is so important about 2016 and the next few years, and where do you see it going? Where do you see us going in the next 20 years or so?
Well, that's an interesting point, Brandon, that you mentioned that. Dark information. I don't see it in those terms. I see secrecy and ignorance as dark, if you like. Excuse me. As dark. because they are what keep us in servitude. And I do have to shake my head and smile sometimes when I see people from, like, the New Age arena, if you like, that kind of perception, that kind of sense of reality, where they look at people like me and they say, "You're too negative." No, I'm not negative. I am exposing what's happening in the world that people don't know is happening. Thus, that's not negative. I can't think of anything more positive, because how can you, if you like, solve a problem that you do not know exists? How can you play a game when you don't know the rules? You can't. The game's going to have you for breakfast, dinner, and tea. And that's why this information that's exposing what's going on is not negative. It's actually fantastic. It's crucial, bottom line, to sorting it out. It's by knowing what there is to sort out and how it works, and thus how we can thwart where it wants to go. You've got to know the problem before you can know the answer. So, I mean, there was a great quote from Jiddu Krishnamurti, a deep thinker, and some people will call a mystic. And he said, if we can really understand the problem, the answer will come out of it, because the answer is not separate from the problem. And this is what these people miss completely when they say it's negative. I think it's fantastically positive to know what's going on in the world when we didn't know before. And from that perspective, we can then do something about it. Now, the reason I would suggest that 2016, 2017, 2018 and beyond, but these years are absolutely crucial. And it's funny that I've been saying for a long time that these years were crucial, and suddenly, purely by synchronicity, I'm going out on a world tour that the like of which even I've never been on, and I've been on a few. Because this is the time when this information has to get out, and there's a wonderful, again, synchronicity coming together. Because I remember 26 years ago, 25 years ago, trying to communicate this information. Well, I mean, there weren't a lot of listeners really, but now I'm seeing a fantastic expansion of people, and in walks of life you never would have thought not long ago, who are now opening their minds to this. They're now opening their minds to possibilities they would have laughed at before, because not only are world events making them reassess what they see, something's changing in them. And the first book that I wrote after my own awakening, and it wasn't an awakening and that's it, it's ongoing, you just awaken more. But back in 1990, I wrote a book called Truth Vibrations. And the reason I called it that was because I was describing something. It'd take too long now, but it came for me from many different sources. That there was a vibrational change coming. In other words, an energetic change. In other words, an information change, because energy is information, that was going to act like a spiritual alarm clock and awaken humanity from its slumber, from its coma. And that people who were less asleep were going to wake up first and start to change in their perceptions. But eventually, even those that at that time, in my words, were comatose, were going to start waking up. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it all the time, more and more and more. Instead of people stopping me in the street now and saying, "You're mad," they're now stopping me in the street and wanting a conversation about what's happening in the world. The difference is very, very tangible and very obvious. So we shouldn't fall for the idea that we are alone in this. Their awareness beyond the program is seeking to awaken expressions of itself from the program. But for that, people say to me, Brandon, over the years many times, when's the cavalry coming? Well, the cavalry is sharing the same space that you're standing in. It's just on a different frequency. And if it became your frequency, it wouldn't be the cavalry anymore. It would be a phantom self. So we have to expand our awareness to connect, if you like, with the cavalry, which is that level of awareness which can give us a fix on ourselves and the nature of what's going on in the world. You know, through history, you know, there have been people like Leonardo da Vinci, Giordano Bruno, who have been said to have been ahead of their time. But they weren't ahead of their time at all. They were beyond time. They were connecting with levels of awareness that are always there to be connected with. Not some alien in a spaceship, a level of infinite awareness. And therefore, if you can connect with that at the time, again, illusion time, but when Leonardo da Vinci was around, or when Giordano Bruno was around, and when many others were around, before modern society, if you like, if you could connect with that level of awareness then, or any other time, if you could connect with it when people were knocking rocks together, you can access what that awareness gives you in terms of insight, awareness, knowledge, intuition. And so these people that could see things, and people look back and they go, how did they know that then? How? They were connecting with the level of awareness that is in the same space that you're standing in now, and you can access it if you break yourself out of the program. So this level of awareness is seeking to talk to us. And these truth vibrations are a vibrational change being infused into this reality to help that process of frequency connection, of frequency expansion. So more and more people will start to change. I mean, when they hear information delivered, you know, in talks and books and whatever, and interviews and on shows like this, then that is obviously a great help, because what you're doing is you're speaking to phantom self and starting to make that question and start that in the process of energetically breaking up its density. But beyond that, and on top of that, there is this energetic vibrational change happening in the energetic fields around us, which is seeking to stimulate frequency expansion, thus a reevaluation of reality and perception. And these two things together are so powerful. The system doesn't try to shut people down. It's not attacking the alternative media on the internet, although I must say much of the alternative media needs to get into the spiritual side of this as well, to understand more about the 5 sense stuff that it deals with. But they don't target the alternative media and try to shut it down and marginalize it because it's a bit of fun. It's because they have to do that, because they're terrified of what that information will do. And so these are very, very encouraging things that are happening. At the same time, and this is a key reason why 2016, 17, 18 are so important, is that the system and that which is behind the system, an inverted awareness, which actually has a name, which is now becoming very famous and constantly talked about, called artificial intelligence. The force that's inverted this world, I go into this in detail in Phantom Self, and that awareness that has been manipulating and inverting this reality and imprisoning humanity is now given the name, although they don't tell you what it really means, of artificial intelligence. And what they're doing is building a technological vehicle for that artificial intelligence to completely consume human awareness. And it's working like this. I mean, you know, we even have these I would use the word clown, except it's not funny. People like Ray Kurzweil, the PR man for Frankenstein, this great promoter, and so many others with him of transhumanism, where they want to put technology and connect humans with technology, put technology inside people. They are openly talking now in their arrogance, because, you know, a lot of people in transhumanism are just have no idea what it's really about. They're just consumed by technology and they're obsessed with it and addicted to it. But the people directing it and driving it, like Kurzweil and others, he's a Google executive. Google's massively involved in this monster, that organization. They are openly talking about, not too long from now, human minds will be connected to the cloud, as they call it, and the cloud will do their thinking. That cloud is what I've been calling for years and years and years in the books, a technological sub-reality, where they, the chapter in Phantom Self, where I go into this whole thing in detail, I've actually called transphantomism. For this reason, we've discussed in the chat today Phantom Self, and how Phantom Self disconnects our sense of reality and perception from infinite self. What transhumanism, or what I call transphantomism, is taking that a massive step further, where not only do you disconnect Phantom Self from infinite self, you then entrap Phantom Self in another level of technological self, the cloud. And what Kurzweil is saying is that the cloud will eventually do virtually all, indeed the plan is all, the thinking and perception creation of humans. And as I've been saying for years, the plan is to turn humans into nothing more than a computer terminal on an internet. And what we're seeing now before our eyes is the creation of that. What they're saying, they talk about the internet, which came through places like DARPA, the technological arm of the Pentagon, and CERN, and the technology for the internet would not have been created and developed as a gift to humanity, a benefit to humanity. There are many beneficial things about it, which they're now trying to delete desperately. But as an entity, it's part of this technological sub-reality that Kurzweil calls the cloud. This is why they are talking about the Internet of Things, where even your fridge is connected to the internet. And all these technologies and policies that are given the name smart, because we've got to get the impression it's smart, it's clever. No, it's not. It's a plan to completely subvert human awareness. Smart phones, smart meters, smart TVs, smart cities. What are smart cities? They are cities designed with computer chips and nanotechnology embedded everywhere that create what? A technological sub-reality. And the reason they want to get technology inside humans, and it's not, in many ways, the microchips of the size that you can see, I wouldn't say they're a complete diversion, but they are very much a diversion, because the real level of this so-called by then human cloud sub-reality connection is nanotechnology, what they call, and here we go again, smart dust and such like. And in the movie Transcendence with Johnny Depp, and if people haven't seen that, they should watch it on DVD for a simple reason. It will give them a feel for what is planned. For those who haven't seen it, Johnny Depp was a scientist. He had a scientist wife, and they were trying to create sentient technology, i.e. transhumanist technology. And he found he was dying. And so what they did was download his mind into the internet, and it became the internet's awareness. The internet became conscious. Now, I'm seeing scientists now saying, could the internet become conscious? I would say it already has become conscious, because that's what the internet is there for. And what, again, we come back to this, Brandon. What are they saying everything is going to be controlled by? Artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is this self-aware, inverted consciousness that's been behind this hijack of human society. This technological smart grid, as they're calling it, global smart grid, is the vehicle through which they are going to allow this artificial intelligence that's been behind in the shadows all this time, behind the front people and the front families and the front bloodlines, to take complete control of human society by taking complete control of the human mind. And interestingly, and very, very significant, in the Johnny Depp film Transcendence, they released smart dust, sentient nano robots in all directions that were breathed in and absorbed by humanity, which then connected them to the internet, which Johnny Depp's consciousness had taken over. And he was therefore able to control the minds of people connected to the internet, which was his, what will be, or planned to be, artificial intelligence. This is what is happening. Now, it's happening before our eyes. I've had a term I've used for decades, which I call the totalitarian tiptoe. You start at A, you want to go to Z, but you can't go from A to Z too quickly, otherwise people will see the pattern. So you go as fast as you can, but you go from A to B, maybe then to D, maybe to E, not too fast that people see it. And this has been the process of what I've just described. One, you get people addicted to technology. And I'll tell you this, I say this in Phantom Self. I feel that part, and I think a key part, of this addiction to technology that people have, which is becoming just as much and just as powerful as an addiction to drugs, as an addiction to alcohol or whatever. I think that addiction is artificial intelligence coming off this technology, and it's locking in and it's pulling people in like a electromagnetic field, pulling people in to an addiction. Anyway, we've got the addiction to technology. Smartphones and all this rest of it. That's stage one. Stage two is what all these stages have now got names. It's the wearables. So now the wearable stage is to get technology onto the body with electronic tattoos on the skin, the precursor to microchips, the smart watches, the Google Glass, the Bluetooth. And now, I read an article in Forbes magazine a few months ago where it was saying that only a few years from now, what they call implantables will be commonplace. And that's the next stage in the totalitarian tiptoe, which is getting technology inside the body, which then can connect to technology. And one final point on this. How are they releasing this smart dust? How are they releasing what was in Johnny Depp's film, sentient nanobot dust? One of the major ways they're doing it is chemtrails.
How convenient.
chemtrails. And that's why, and for me, Brandon, that's what Morgellons disease is. Where this disease that started to emerge when the chemtrails started to be seen, and where they find colored fibers and bits of crystal inside the body, which are self-replicating. Do you know, you read what Kurzweil is talking about, and he's talking about nanobots, smart dust inside the human body, which is capable of replicating, which is taking over, which then takes over the body. And it's quite possible that what we call sufferers of Morgellons are people whose bodies are rejecting it rather than absorbing it. If you look at the way this is flowing, the pattern and the dot connecting is so blatantly obvious. And here's another point. Because this inverted awareness that has hijacked our reality by disconnecting us from our true selves, because it is in effect artificial, it's in effect synthetic compared with what you might call biological in nature. And you look at what they're doing, Brandon. They're changing drugs to make them synthetic. They're creating synthetic blood. They're creating synthetic DNA. I think they call it GNA and other names. They are creating, and GMO is all part of this as well. They are basically rewiring and replicating the world in a synthetic fashion. And what they're doing with this smart dust is they're seeking to turn biological human bodies into a form of synthetic life, because they are in effect synthetic life. And when you, I talk about this again in Phantom Self, what's happening is before our eyes, there's an assimilation going on. Humans are being assimilated into a hive mind, a hive technological mind, which will do all thinking. And so when Kurzweil and co, in their arrogance and in their mendacity, try to sell this stuff to us as making humans superhuman, all the bloody nonsense they talk to try to sell people this nightmare. Why would a force that has spent eons seeking to suppress humanity, to limit us, to disconnect us from true self, to hijack our perception, why would that suddenly, on the road to Damascus or Google headquarters, suddenly have this desire to make us superhuman? It's not about making us superhuman. It's about making us subhuman. And the reason 2016, 2017, 2018, and the years that immediately follow are so important is because if we hang about much longer, then this process of assimilation will have started to reach the point where infinite awareness is going to lose its bloody voice trying to scream at Phantom Self and get it to hear.
Well, David, I really hate to end the discussion where we're at. We've only just touched the surface of this stuff, but we're out of time. So I want to thank you again for coming on the show tonight, and remind everybody to go to davidicke.com, pick up a copy of The Phantom Self. And if you're interested in picking up tickets for David's events, go to theworldwidewakeup.com, and those tickets are available there. They're already available for most venues. So, again, David, thanks again so much for coming on the show this evening.
It's a pleasure, Brandon. Thank you very much.
They told us to pack up our bags.